let me just ask you, like, what have you all right, I'm gonna ask like 3 questions in one question, and then I'm just gonna let you cook, okay? So did you know this was something that was coming? B, what have you been able to find out about the decommitment in terms of how the Raiolas came to this point in the process? And C, do you think Nebraska knew this was coming?
So, A, did I see this coming? No, but thankfully we have a great team here at Rivals, and a few people here did know this was coming, including our Greg Smith, and had an idea things were trending in a direction previously unseen. Did Nebraska see this coming? Yes, they had a sense this is where things were trending. And as far as how we got here, um, something changed between Friday night and, let's say, Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, in terms of how both sides felt about this partnership, specifically the Dayton Raiola Nebraska partnership, and just where the viability of it, just in terms of I had gotten a sense there was an understanding across the board of what this was, what Dayton Raiola was coming here to do, and kind of an understanding that, hey, the path to playing time is likely very slim, if at all. I kind of figured that was the understanding, and from what I had been told and heard, it was the understanding, but it kind of feels like now we're up against signing day, and it kind of felt like reality hit a little bit, just in terms
Mm.
of what this would look like. I think part of this factors in is the play of TJ behind the scenes and in practice, and kind of what he stepped up and been. I think Trey Taylor, the ascension he's made as a junior, kind of stamping himself as one of these top 27 quarterbacks nationally. Like I think all of that played a factor into it. But yeah, now we're at a point where we're 2 weeks out from signing day, or less than 2 weeks out now, and Nebraska is without a 26 quarterback. Not necessarily a need they had to address, but this staff, just in general, at the Power Four level, you like to have a guy every cycle. You never know what can happen. You never know what can, you just never know. I think it's important to take a shot and get a guy in every single cycle. I do think Nebraska is going to find a way to address that, whether it's a late high school edition or more likely a portal edition. But that's where we're at now.
Tim, when it comes to the decommitment and from your understanding of it, I know you got a little bit into that about maybe some of the reasonings why, but do you get a sense that there is any part of that conversation between Dayton and Nebraska where some of that maybe started or had some internal conversation from Nebraska's side that started that process of saying, hey, maybe there's a better opportunity for you elsewhere? Or do you think this was truly a Dayton Raiola decision 100% on his side?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been this like back and forth of like, hey, like, and I think part of this is, again, just where everyone thought everyone was in terms of the understanding of the situation. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there was some discussion back and forth, but ultimately in terms of what triggered this, yeah, this is more so on Dayton Raiola's side of trying to find an opportunity to play football. And, I think part of this too is I think who he I think very much you can very much say part of this is he's played how he has as a senior, kind of, and is wants to give this a go, wants to give this a real go of like playing at the next level, and a realistic go of playing at the next level. And I don't really know how many opportunities there will be for that at the Power Four level for him, to be quite honest. But he has an opportunity now over these next week and a half or so to explore those opportunities and see what's out there for him.
Mm. Tim, do you think there is any correlation to this Dayton Raiola decision and anything that may or may not happen with Dylan Raiola in the offseason?
I mean, sure. I mean, I think one is absolutely related. I mean, these two guys. I mean, they're brothers. The family is so important to the Raiola. Like, it does absolutely, but I don't think one automatically implicates the other. I don't think Dayton not being a Nebraska commit and not signing with Nebraska on December 3rd automatically means Dylan Raiola is headed to the portal or anything like that. At the same time, this is a situation that needs some massaging over, and this is going to be one of those things that it's just going to be this kind of push-pull where it's going to be just kind of a storyline to essentially monitor until the portal officially opens, which it won't happen until Jan 2nd. So, yeah, if anyone's like sick of this or sick of the speculation or sick of whatever, yeah, it's going to be speculated on until December 2nd at this point.
So you mentioned the impact that TJ Latif and his play have had on, you think they had on the Dayton decision. Do you think any of the way TJ Latif has played is going to have any impact on the Dillon decision?
No.
Okay.
Tim, off question, but I promise it'll get us there. Do you have siblings?
I do.
Okay.
Siblings.
So are you the oldest?
Yes.
So if you were to give any advice as an older sibling who's, lived a little bit longer life or anything, do you think your younger siblings may take some advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think absolutely. Like, yeah, I mean, just off lived experience.
So why I don't understand how that hasn't been brought up more. How that can't be a part of this conversation too. That Dillon can't be also, part of the quarterback conversation and the starting quarterback at Nebraska, but also be an older brother and just say, maybe this is not, it's the best place for me, but maybe it's not the best place for you. I don't understand how that narrative hasn't really spun out yet from Nebraska fans who are just assuming it's one and the same, that Dayton and Dillon would both leave because one didn't like Nebraska.
Right. And again, I don't think it's anything of not like. I think the feeling, I think honestly, if you ask Dayton Raiola, he still likes Nebraska. He's still I think part of this is just truly the calculus in terms of the playing football. I think part of this was the initially hey, there's a very limited chance you see the field, or there's a limited chance that Dayton Raiola sees the field at Nebraska. At least that was the perception, for very long. It was based on just, again, where things stayed, where he's at as a prospect. He's a guy that I almost at the Power 4 level, it was going to take a couple of years of development before he was ready to see the field. It was going to need a couple more years of polishing and putting certain things together before he was ready. And you look at just a crowded room at Nebraska, it was just going to be tough for that. And so I think part of this is, okay, hey, go find somewhere where maybe there is an easier path to playing time, and maybe there is even a better opportunity to develop. You're not splitting reps with 4 or 5 other guys. You're splitting reps with 2, 3 other guys, and you're on the 2 deep where you have a chance to really split reps with the 1 and 2s on the roster.
So, Tim, I'm glad you brought up kind of the type or level of prospect that Dayton is, because I do think that matters in this situation. With him reopening his recruitment, what type of program do you expect him to land at?
Yeah, again, I think I'm looking primarily, I think outside of the SEC and the Big Ten, I think there are a few Big 12 programs, ACC programs still in search of a QB commit, still in search of a 26 QB that would potentially make some sense. In terms of, again, just pure, really depends on what he's looking for. Because if he's looking for a true playing time, I think he could find that at the G5 level, an opportunity to compete for a starting job early on in his career. Could potentially find that at the lower G5 level too. So yeah, I think there's opportunity out there. It's just, again, we're a week and a half away from signing day. He's deep in a playoff run. How much time is he going to have to make visits? That's kind of part of this, and how much time is he going to have to explore options. So, is it going to be a December 3rd decision, or at this point, it's going to be a later decision? That's what I'm curious to see, and curious to see kind of how he handles this thing kind of moving forward.
Do you have any more Dayton questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. I'm good there too. Tim, I want to ask you just about the national conversation when it comes to how Nebraska is preparing for these next couple of weeks, gearing up, because the 2026 conversation, I felt like in the summer, Nebraska's fan base had a good hold on it because it was articulated well that, hey, we're going to take a smaller class. It's not going to be the prettiest number, the sexiest number. But when guys start to remove themselves from that class and it does dwindle down even further, what does Nebraska need to do in these next 2 weeks to maybe not necessarily ease the fan base, because that's not their goal? They're just trying to make sure that they're filling the roster as they see fit. But what are those holes that they still need to maybe attack or address?
Yeah, I think so. I've said this a couple places this week. However you feel about how crazy these next 2 weeks can get, it can get crazier. There's a lot that is moving just across the college football space right now. And about next weekend is when I think things are really going to start to move once some regular seasons wrap up. And I think, I mean, we're already going to start to see some trickle down of like, hey, this is where this head coach is heading. And this is how this job's going to get filled. And there's going to be some movement as a result of all of that. So what does that mean necessarily for like Nebraska? It's okay. They need to stay proactive, and I do think they are. They're doing a good job of that. They need to and will stay proactive in addressing some of these needs because not every high school prospect is built the same, but they're looking for instant impact in the front seven. Ideally, defensive line, linebacker. You're looking for just kind of an instant impact contributor. You're looking even at safety. You're looking for a big safety this cycle. Can you find that here late over these next week and a half with an opening elsewhere? Lane Kiffin does make a decision on where he's going. Does that open up or change the recruitment elsewhere? What happens with this Texas noise? How real is it? Sark has publicly shut it down, but we know how much words necessarily mean compared to action. So tracking what happens obviously in Florida, tracking what happens at a couple other places, because I think there are a few programs that still have some decisions to make. I think that Arkansas job, whoever takes that, will have some implications elsewhere. So I think there's just a general, there's going to have to be it's going to be a race. I mean, you look at what Nebraska's doing. I mean, the names to know right now are primarily in the JUCO ranks, and then there's some high school guys to watch. They're looking for a third receiver. That's primarily Quade Hendricks right now, the UConn commit that they're set to get on an official visit for the Iowa game. That's a 5'11", 175-pound pass catcher that can play in the slot, play outside. Nebraska's looking for more slot depth. He fits that. That's a name I'm keeping an eye on. Has a chance to be a member of this class come December 3rd. Mekhi Metelu, offensive lineman out of Mount Sac Junior College. That's a guy they're looking for after the decommitment. I mean, they were on him before Leon Noyle decommitted, but, Nebraska had a sense where the Noyle thing was going. Quickly jumped on Metelu, a kind of versatile interior line prospect who is somewhat plug and play. He's older. He went on a mission. He's up to 280 pounds. Would need a little time to maybe add a little more weight to that frame, but is someone that can compete in the 2 deep on the offensive line. Defensive line, they're after Dylan Barrowman, 4-star defensive lineman out of LSU. That's what I think that's LSU's to lose right now. He's at LSU last weekend, tentatively expected back at LSU this weekend, and Nebraska's expecting him on November 28th. We'll see if that visit happens. I could see LSU potentially shutting things down with him this weekend, but that's a guy they'd love to have. He's 330 pounds. Right around 6'2", coming out of the high school level, and he's an instant impact kind of guy. Like that's a guy that's walking into, if he does come into Nebraska, would be walking into the defensive line room and he's taking up snaps from someone else. That's a guy Nebraska would like to land. And then there's a few others at edge and kind of linebacker. They're after Taylor Schaefer, junior college prospect out of Iowa Central. At DB, they're after Assad Chapman, junior college prospect out of the West Coast. But he's set to visit. He was at Oregon last weekend, tentatively expected to Oregon this weekend. Nebraska's battling with Mississippi State to get him in town November 28th. Mississippi State wants him in town for the Egg Bowl. Nebraska wants him in town for Iowa, Nebraska. And then the other name just is a non-JUCO, non-high school ranks name to know is Carrington Pierce, Oklahoma State transfer defensive back. He's racing to make a decision. He's in the portal early because he entered after Gundy got fired. He's trying to make a decision. I get the sense he's trying to make a decision before the floodgates open and the portal actually opens up. And so those are the names to watch as of now. We could have a few more names on that list like this time next week. And we could just see some movement this time next week. Again, like what happens at 26 QB? Do they extend some new offers? Do they, kind of circle back on anybody? That's a question I have moving forward. Do they really look at any other offensive linemen? Do they extend any new defensive line offers? That's what I'm looking at. And then safety, like I mentioned, they're after a big-time safety if they can find one. I don't know at this point if they will, but that's a name. That's a prospect I'm really looking to see if they're going to address before signing day.
Tim, a couple questions for you here. One, how much impact do you think the decommitment of Noyle has?
It's tough. I mean, again, I just because that was a guy they felt was, a guy they could potentially compete for a spot in the 2 deep along the interior early on, and a guy they felt really strongly about long term, like his developmental upside. He's a guy with a pretty high floor, but a pretty high ceiling as well. Like really athletic lower body, has that kind of swing ability to play tackle or guard. Even though he's on he's 6'4", he has the length frame wise to potentially play tackle and the athleticism to potentially play tackle and would have given Nebraska kind of this high. And I mean, think about how they talk about Preston Tamua.
Mhm.
It felt like that, a lot of like very similar prospect just in terms of the versatility, the high floor, the ability to kind of come in and just be like a steady guy that's going to compete for snaps and be someone the staff can rely on down the line. It's tough. I mean, that said, they feel pretty good about Rex Waterman, the senior year that Hayden Ainsworth had after reclassifying up. Cotton Puma remains just the big splashy ad of this offensive line group. And if they land Mako Metella, you still feel good about the four-man offensive line room you had, the offensive line depth you had. But yeah, I mean, it sucks to lose a guy like Leon Noy that you had committed for so long, and most importantly, in my opinion, felt like Nebraska, that was a big step forward in their efforts in New Orleans, in Louisiana in particular. That's a powerhouse program. They were on him and his 27 teammate. Now at this point, I really strongly doubt they're going to have a chance at landing his 27 teammate. That's not going to stop him from trying in New Orleans, but it's just tough. It's a tough development.
All right, second question on kind of what we were talking about there. A lot of D-line and linebacker talk. I'm curious, which group do you like better in terms of who's currently on the roster? Because I think that kind of impacts how you view the recruitment of those extra guys.
I like the D-line room a little more now, just in terms of what I think this group could be with another offseason of development, another year. These guys are so young. I do think they need, like, in terms of what they need to add, obviously they need, I think, some D linemen to add depth. And I think it would obviously help to add a high impact guy before next year. That said, I think more importantly for next year, you need more athleticism in the linebacker room. You need kind of a big athletic leader in there that, especially with the loss of Javen Wright after the season, you need a big, a Taylor Schaefer-esque kind of just big linebacker, a big athletic linebacker in the room, in my opinion. That said, I do think they're going to address both. I think D-line and linebacker help are coming. I think right now, in terms of what Nebraska needs for 26, I think a big athletic playmaking linebacker would answer and solve a lot of these defenses' problems.
Tim, if Emmett does what a lot of people consider Emmett will go and do after the season wraps up, does that mean transfer portal conversation for running backs part 2 as we follow from last season? Or do you think it's going to be more of a priority for Nebraska to try to target to replace him? How do you see that one unfolding?
I think regardless, I think transfer portal, like running back in the transfer portal, is going to be addressed. I think, again, very much depends on what Emmett does. I think at this point, the smart move for Emmett would be to capitalize on his ascending stock. Running back is a position where it's about the tread on the tires. It's about getting there healthy, capitalizing when your stock is high. I think he should declare at the end of this year, obviously barring how these next 2 games go, but I think he should declare at the end of the year. And if that does happen, I could see Nebraska adding like 2 running backs out of the portal potentially.